In our last lecture, we talked about how the cell uses energy to grow bigger, it increases its size so that it can divide and make the next generation of cells. Now, that process of making an identical copy of a cell is called mitosis. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about mitosis, but also about meiosis. Some people call it meiosis, but it's meiosis. And we're going to learn about how it is a different process that allows for sexual reproduction, which is when two different organisms of the same type can share their DNA. Mitosis copies all the genes in a eukaryote, and meiosis just breaks the cell into two. So for humans with our 46 different chromosomes, meiosis would take and break those into 23. Now, the 23 chromosomes match in their content, what genes they have, what types of things they have, with the other 23, but they're not exactly the same. And that's one of the interesting things about sexual reproduction is it allows there to be a lot of variation down the road. Two daughter cells of the meiosis process must find similar germline cells and recombine with them in order, for example, in humans, to go from 23 chromosomes back up to 46, which is what you need to be a functioning human cell. The process of recombination of those two daughter cells that find each other, two different daughter cells, give the diversity of life, because depending on which of the germline cells interact, sperm and an egg, for example, from two people, depends on what types of genes are available in the catalog of choices. So earlier we talked about DNA as being the menu of life, the catalog that you can look through and figure out which things you might like to order. So depending on which two cells, which two 23 chromosome cells combine, the catalog of choices changes. And so you can imagine blue eyes or brown hair or blonde hair, depending on which choices there are for that cell to choose from. The genetic program can only pick from the menu. So if it's a different menu, it's going to result in a different looking organism. Now, an activity for you is to think about these two similar but different processes, mitosis and meiosis, and how one maybe came from the other, how one might have started first and how the other one came. At first you might think, well, they're pretty similar, so they shouldn't be too hard. But some people consider this one of the biggest mysteries in biology. And if you look at the mystery of sex, the mystery of this, the red, all these other possibilities in your reading, you'll find a lot of books on Amazon. A lot of ink has been spilled in this biggest mystery of biology. And a lot of that is because an organism needs to have a fully functioning system for doing the recombination process. At the same time, another organism has that system of recombining so that they can interact with one another. And that is difficult. Now, another thought experiment is you might think that prokaryotes get left out of this whole process because they undergo just binary fission. But keep in mind that they can do something called conjugation, where they come together, swap genetic information, and then break apart. So that they get some of the same benefits of swapping genetic information. Now, a story that I like to think about is how humans and apes are different in one chromosome. So humans have 23 different chromosomes, and when you multiply that by 2, they have 46 total, which is the number we've been talking about. Apes have 24 different chromosomes, so 48 total. And the theory is that one human chromosome is actually a combination of two ape chromosomes. And it turns out that human chromosome number 2 is probably that chromosome because it has evidence of a fusion event that happens. Now, questions to ask yourself are, does this fusion event that seems to be between the different halves of human chromosome number 2 prove the theory that apes had 24 and one of them fused together? Does that prove that those apes then are our ancestors and not something else? Another question to ask yourself is, does this fusion make us brainier? So could we potentially fuse the same 2 chromosomes in an ape and make the ape brainier? That's another thought experiment, and you can think about what that might look like and what are the ethics of doing something as crazy as that. But these are the kinds of questions you can ask yourself once you learn biology the way you're doing now. And if you're going a little deeper, this is the time to review those branches that we looked at last time. What happens to cells as they pass through mitosis? And why do some cells divide by meiosis, not mitosis? And why does meiosis lead to changes in the gene pool, which is a new branch that you can look at today? And focus now on the difference between mitosis and meiosis now that you understand sort of why sometimes one happens and sometimes another happens.